Hello, and welcome to Are You Karate Kidding Me?
Your resource for recaps, reviews, and items of interest from all around the Miyagi-verse. I'm your host, Colin Kennedy.
I am Jenny Carlson, also your host.
And we are back in the saddle again. We ride.
We ride again because we've actually recorded this once, but then there was so much news during our editing phase, and while I was, frankly, chasing deadlines, that we are here with so much more news before we recap episode 6 of season 3.
Yeah, we don't need to get into too much of how the soup is made, but yes, this is generally the last thing we record because we want to be up to date on all the latest going-ons around the Miyagi-verse.
Indeed, or as up to date as we can be.
Right.
At any rate, there is a lot of news. To begin with, we have ordered the new vinyl issue of the Cobra Kai soundtrack.
That's true. That will be here before we know it.
We did not get it on tape, but we did already have it on disc.
It's fine. I don't think we have a tape player right now anyway. So.
There's no way in this house that we don't have a tape player. You guys can't see this, but Colin's office looks like... Did you see Wolfgang's basement in The Explorers? Colin's office looks like there's so much retro tech. We have our original computers in here from when we were kids.
I mean, those are collector's items now.
Yeah, well...
Much like Johnny's box of collector's items.
They're family heirlooms. I mean, they might fetch more money at the pawn shop than Johnny's. We also have news about seasons 4 and 5 and a little talk about spoilers.
I mean, we're not going to spoil anything. That's not our purview.
No, but first let's talk about what news we have of the seasons.
The big announcement since our last episode was probably that we now have a premiere date, which was December.
Yeah,
that was revealed in
month.
that. Yes, a premiere month.
Yes.
I mean, out of that month, there can only be 4 days that they could possibly premiere it. They're probably not going to premiere it on Christmas week, so that gives us 3 days in December that they could possibly premiere it.
Gossip Blogs had the day as December 17th, and some other people have we've bandied that date back and forth because that's the closest Friday to tournament day.
You know, from a streaming platform's perspective, that's also the smart money because then you've got a captive audience at home for that holiday break.
Indeed.
So drop the whole season that week before.
They can lock me up any day.
Yes, exactly. Yes, we'll be definitely binging and probably recording a rapid episode for that week.
Yes.
So we will be busy.
We will be busy. We've also learned that season 5 is filming soon. This is something we all kind of suspected would happen.
Season 5 has been officially confirmed.
Yes.
The thing. Yeah.
Well, yeah. See, I mean, my feeling is that with all the hints about Honeycrisp season, that was about that season 5 was coming. And now the checks have cashed from Sony and Netflix, and
Sure.
season 5 is forthcoming as they will be making it this fall.
That's right. So, yes. So it's official. Cobra Kai is renewed for season 5, which I guess technically that means this show is renewed for another year.
It is.
Because, again, our goal is to recap all Miyagi-verse. So as long as they keep making new Miyagi-verse, we're on the hook. We're also on the hook for that musical, by the way.
It's starting in St. Louis, so maybe we'll meet them in St. Louis.
Maybe.
Or
oh, that's true.
in St. Louis.
Yes.
As they say. But there also, briefly, before we delve into this season 3, episode 6 recap, I just wanted to talk about the Sony shout-outs because they had a Q&A with the showrunners and put it on Twitter, and some of our pals submitted questions, and there were video responses from the showrunners, etc. And on the wall behind the showrunners, there was a corkboard, or a couple of corkboards, with some Post-its, index cards and Post-its, leading to what appeared to be plot points. I'm wondering if you spent any time zooming in on those or not.
Well, you know, I have a very laissez-faire attitude towards spoilers and towards revealing stuff. If I find out something inadvertently, you know, whatever, but I'm not looking to spoil myself. I mean, call it the skeptic in me, but I find it very convenient that they would have such a visible and conveniently placed corkboard behind them with all the plot points for the season just laid out so carefully that you could just zoom in on it and see what they're planning for season 5 or beyond.
I admit I zoomed in for a couple of minutes and I read some plot points that may or may not, or your story beats that may or may not be real with these showrunners, because they have such a tight relationship with the fandom, or with the fandom as we see it in social media. It's entirely possible they're trolling us. It's also entirely possible they don't care or they forgot. Like, who knows? As far as I could read, and there are some breakdowns of this from our friends online, but as far as I could read, I haven't listened to those yet because I'm trying not to spoil myself, but too much. But I don't think that it noted whether it was season 4 or 5 that was up on the board. So I don't know. My question is, like, how do we care? How do we relate to that as a show? And also, what do we do when we look at spoilers and try to spoil it? Part of it is the fun of the banter with the showrunners. I think that drives a lot of people to look, not necessarily knowing what's next. But I have a lot of faith in the show, so I don't need that information. And back in my Star Wars days, I used to need, or Game of Thrones, I used to need that information because I didn't always feel like I could trust what was coming. But with this, I'm pretty confident, so I'm not worried about. Yeah,
I think that's a big part of it. I also think that as far as the purview of this show is, like, we primarily recap. So we're more concerned with what actually winds up on the screen than what potentially could happen, right?
Yes.
It's fun to speculate, but at the end of the day, the text that is more important than the text that could be. Provided they don't give us any sort of, like, Miyagi multiverse like so many other franchises are starting to
Cobra Kai, what if?
do. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. And, as long as they have a sequence of Daniel teaching Johnny Miyagi-Do, then I won't have a problem with it.
Exactly.
Just making it clear.
What about them Emmys?
That's right. We got some Emmy noms.
That's right. Big Emmy noms.
The show we love has been nominated for 4 Emmys this year.
That's right. They are having a banner year for Emmys. Previous years, they would always get a stunt nod, naturally.
We got that.
And we have that again this year. But also this year, they've gotten nominated for sound mixing and sound editing. And let me say,
so deserved.
A shout out to that entire team, because as a Cobra Kai-centric podcast, I'm remixing that audio quite a bit into our show.
That's true.
And so I am always very impressed with the little touches that they're doing with that, with the audio mixing and audio editing when I have to re-edit it.
Indeed.
But the big news is they've also gotten the biggest category yet, which is Outstanding Comedy Series for 2021. So, yeah, that would be very cool.
When Ted Lasso and Hack split the vote and Cobra Kai wins, I'm going to lose it. I'm not sure if that's really going to happen, but in my heart, it's already happened.
I feel like that's probably a very likely scenario. I mean, it's a tough category this year. Like, there's quite a bit happening with some certain other shows.
Our leads were robbed for Best Actor.
That's fair, but then again, they've also been renewed, so they get another shot at the big ring next year as well. So,
Truth. Yeah, and there's a lot of press, as I'm sure you guys have seen, or maybe you haven't, if you are blissfully detached from celebrity media. There's been a lot going on because of the Emmy buzz. A lot of interviews, great content out there. Almost too much to name, but if you go on Cobra Kai Twitter, it's coming in fast and furious. So don't miss it. And it's great to see they're getting that Legacy Award from the Hollywood Critics Association. So, or they will have by the time you all listen to this. So they're just picking up so much steam. This train cannot be stopped.
Speaking of trains that can't be stopped, we also need to continue with our show, which means recapping today's episode of Cobra Kai.
That's right. Well, without further ado, then, let's get to it.
With Season 3, Episode 6, King Cobra.
King Cobra.
Much like last week, we open with a flashback to another character's backstory. We're in Vietnam, 1968, the Chiron informs us, and some of the background footage and helicopter footage feel taken right from Shutterstock. In fact, I'm going to call this Camp Shutterstock.
Indeed. Camp Shutterstock works. We see John Kreese at mail call being given an envelope. They call him Johnny, which is a nice touch, reminding us of the double nature of John Kreese and John Lawrence.
Yeah, once we get on the ground with these guys, like the way it's filmed, the color grading really does make it like they are really going for it with the whole Vietnam 60s, 70s era film here.
In this scene, Kreese has gotten mail from his girl back home. He's opened it up and looked at Betsy's picture, and a guy with dark hair and a ponytail swipes it and shows it to another guy. And the swaggering guy with the ponytail is listed in the credits as, appropriately, Ponytail. He's played by Seth Kemp. And the more mild-mannered guy we will learn is called Twig. He is played by Nick Marini. So they banter about the picture, but are interrupted by the sergeant, who is sent to summon Kreese to the captain in the command tent. The captain is played by Terry Serpico.
Yeah, and the captain calls Kreese a real go-getter, which...
Well, your CO tells me you're a real go-getter.
That's putting it mildly.
Indeed. He asks Kreese if he has a death wish because he's low-key recruiting for some special ops teams.
Yeah.
Kreese says some people can't tell the difference between death and the fear of it.
You got a death wish, kid?
Not wishing for it, just not afraid of it.
Something about his bearing here really reminds me of Robbie.
I can see that, but the captain's position is, well, we're all stuck in this Vietnam movie, so we might as well capitalize on it and do some, like, Dirty Dozen style missions, but because we're on streaming, we can't afford a dozen. I can afford maybe 4 guys max.
Yeah, well, the captain says most of the people in the military there don't make a difference anyway, but Kreese does. And Kreese responds,
Defend my country, be a hero.
and the captain laughs, kind of like, sure, whatever, which gives us a clue about his personality and character. Then he says he's recruiting for direct action missions, no insignias or ID. They're going to do guerrilla tactics, demolitions, hand-to-hand combat. And the captain also says that he learned Tang Soo Do under Kim Sung-young during the Korean War.
Which I believe is the same exact line that Terry Silver gives to Mr. Miyagi when they meet in Karate Kid 3.
My name is Terry Silva. My master is Kim Sung-young of South Korea. My teacher sends his respects.
When Kreese is quote-unquote dead.
Quote-unquote.
Quote-unquote. So this tracks historically with the Korean War, in that right before the Korean War broke out, the original schools of Tang Soo Do were formed in Korea. This is a synthesis of native Korean martial arts like Subak and Taekyon and Kung Fu that the founder Hwang Ki learned when he was in China. So it's a more martial art, more aggressive fighting style.
Yeah, naturally.
Indeed. But the schools were formed right before, say, the captain from Cobra Kai would have been in Korea. And so it's very plausible that he could have picked it up there.
I would love for John, Josh, or Hayden to get at us on Twitter and let us know if they're, like, I know a lot of shows have what's called the show Bible, quote unquote, which kind of gives you a rundown of all the characters and stuff. And it's like, maybe that's not as necessary these days because we know all the characters from Karate Kid already. Maybe there's some stuff about the new characters. But what I would specifically like to know is if the Bible makes any reference as to what characters know with regards to their martial arts skill, because Daniel clearly knows how to fight with the bow staff. So specifically, I'd like to know, like, do you have a show Bible, and in it, do you have kind of like a rundown of what skills all the characters specifically have? Because we know Daniel demonstrated the thing with the bow staff at this Valley Fest in season 2, and then they called that back in season 3 in the previous episode. But does Hawk know how to use a sai? Or if you just want to ping us the PDF of your show Bible and we can just kind of peruse it at our own leisure.
Just Dropbox that to us, please,
Yeah.
big 3 showrunners of a majorly successful streaming series.
Hey, look, it's no skin off their caboose. Like, yeah, why not?
I should also add that Tang Soo Do, like, obviously, Billy Zabka can do it. It's a real school. Pat Johnson, the stunt coordinator for the original Karate Kid, does it. I think Chuck Norris does it. Also on the wiki.
Well, what doesn't Chuck Norris do?
When the boogeyman goes to sleep at night, he checks his closet for Chuck Norris.
Indeed, but there's someone on the Wikipedia who may surprise you, namely John Ratzenberger, a.k.a. Cliff Clavin of Cheers. Verification needed, but indeed, he is also listed as a practitioner of Tang Soo Do. So,
Guys, I think we know where this is all going. John Ratzenberger for Cobra Kai, season 5. Let's get on it.
He's the real big bad.
Ratzenberger for 5.
He's kind of the Billy Carter to Terry Silver's Jimmy Carter.
Whoa.
Or the Roger Clinton. He's Terry Silver's long-lost brother.
Whoa.
Yeah.
I kind of love this.
Yeah. After Cheers ended, Cliff Clavin stopped carrying mail and, in fact, just became...
Or he's Kreese's father.
Wow.
That would be amazing to see as well.
That's incredible.
I mean, we've already had Ed Asner, so Ratzenberger wouldn't be a stretch.
Oh, my God.
Come on, get on this.
Yeah.
Make this happen.
There would be nothing funnier than watching John Ratzenberger kick ass.
Or more terrifying.
Especially if he's like talking to you with obscure facts as he's kicking your ass, as Cliff Clavin is wont to do.
I want to give you a little demonstration of what would have happened to that guy if I hadn't kept a lid on my anger.
At any rate, the captain tells Kreese that if he makes it through, he'll get a beret and some scars. And Kreese says, what if you don't make it through?
Well, then you'll show up on some MIA list in 30 years when they declassify all this shit.
This also counts as the story of how Brando's unit went rogue in Apocalypse Now.
Horror.
So as Kreese is being recruited in the past, we see Kreese in the present doing some recruiting on the grounds of West Valley High, watching girls play basketball, watching Kyler's wrestling team, telling him that he will mold him into the ultimate weapon. Meanwhile,
Right. He wants all these no-goodness to go all in.
at Camp Shutterstock in the past, we see Kreese officially signing on, and now we shift to Casa del Johnny, i.e. Reseda Flats, where Johnny is narrating a Facebook message he's received from Allie and laughing sentimentally.
Hey, Johnny. It really has been a long time.
She wants to know more about Johnny.
It's crazy how things change.
She asks,
Who are you now? What are you up to these days?
That's a pretty loaded question.
What are you up to these days?
But yeah, I think what we're going to see is that Johnny is going to spend most of the episode trying to answer this seemingly simple question. Allie goes on to say, I don't know the first thing about you. Your profile is pretty bare. PolitiFact equals true on that one. Yeah, so Johnny kind of stares at the prompt. It's a very loaded moment.
well, he's also been over all the pictures on her page, right? Like her with her kids at the beach, her eating sushi, her in a variety of artful poses with a lot of joie de vivre, right? So he's got to live it up.
Speaking of joie de vivre, let's head over to the LaRusso man.
Where Daniel has just arrived from Okinawa.
Mom, the conquering hero has returned.
Daniel arrives home from Okinawa with treats, but no bonsai trees.
Bonsai tree.
Just weird candies and other souvenirs from his trip abroad.
And he's so excited to see Amanda. He can't wait to tell her about everything that happened in Okinawa. He's a conquering hero. And he's got gifts for the kids, including some soy sauce as a Kit Kat flavored treat for Anthony, because what else is Anthony going to do but eat?
I would just wanted to punch in here to remind people, hey, don't sleep on those weird Kit Kat flavors. If you're at the Asian market, you grab those suckers. The green
Fair.
tea ones, fantastic.
All right. But Amanda explains that the kids have evacuated to Lucille's, a.k.a. Daniel's mom's.
My mother's wife. What happened?
John Kreese.
Funny story, Daniel. It looks like while you were away, Amanda and Kreese got up to some stuff.
It's nice that they take the opportunity to mention Lucille since we don't see Randy Heller this season.
Absolutely. Even if we're not catching up with our favorite characters, we're at least kind of getting shout-outs and updates on their status.
Bring him back, Big Three. If the Lost finale could reunite everybody for that, then surely you can bring all these characters back next season.
We have to go back, Kate. We have to go back!
Fair.
Ouch.
Too
soon?
Too soon.
Too soon.
Anyway, let's cut over to the Cobra Kai dojo, where Mitch is regaling the other Cobras with the tale of how they outnumbered and broke Dimitri's arm while he was defenseless.
They also pan in from the snake aquarium, which looks... The snake has grown, I think. Looks like the Harry Potter basilisk. Anyway, Hawk looks ambivalent about his victory over Dimitri. And Tori comes up to him and says that she didn't believe he would do it. But, Hawk pivots because he doesn't want to talk about how awkward he feels and says...
Yeah, well, they got what they deserve for what they did to Miguel.
Which, of course, makes Tori look awkward because she doesn't want to talk about it. She hasn't seen Miguel.
I don't want to talk about it.
And it's at this moment that some new faces come in. It's Brooks and Kyler and about a handful of stunt performers who don't have lines, but they are here to turn it up.
I'm gonna call you guys, chode nose and taint breath.
Hell you just say?
Mitch falls on old patterns and tries to jump in, yeah.
Mitch tries to banter with the new people, but Kyler makes it clear that he'll kick his ass, so...
Nothing. It's just this thing we do around here sometimes.
Hawk senses danger and goes over to Kreese to explain that he doesn't think these bullies are Cobra Kai material. But Kreese says these guys have natural ability.
Which is exactly what's been missing in our dojo.
Yeah, Kreese is like, I am the danger, but oh wait, that's another show.
On the heels of this, he gathers everyone around and says that Cobra Kai membership is a privilege, not a gift. Everyone has to compete to belong, and only the strong survive. Cobra Kai to a T, right? Everything is about exploiting vulnerability. Mm-hmm. Anytime Kreese sniffs out a vulnerability, he uses it as an opportunity to push people and scare people a little bit more.
That's right. Speaking of vulnerability,
but Miguel can't stand it, so Johnny lets him drop from the harness.
Go. All right, better fall that time.
He says they'll take 5.
Let's take 5.
And Miguel makes conversation, mentions that Carmen's been talking about Johnny a lot lately.
That's right. But from his vantage point on the floor, Miguel leans over and sees Johnny's laptop perched open and a massive message in the reply field.
The length of a Russian novel. It is a Facebook message that Johnny's writing to Allie. If you freeze the frame and zoom in on the image, it's hilarious. And John Hurwitz tweeted about this. With a screen cap, we know that this message was written by Matea Green, who was a production assistant on the show and then a writing assistant, and now she's a staff writer on season 4.
Nice.
And so also shout out to #1 internet sleuth Amy Anderson for helping us find that Hurwitz tweet.
Yeah, this is where your HD streaming experience pays off, so you can punch in on things like that and just read a massive thing that somebody bothered to write.
Shorter messages are way cooler. Like this just looks desperate.
Because it's way too long to be normal. Miguel spies an opportunity to help Johnny not look like the unfrozen caveman lawyer.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, your world frightens and confuses me.
Even though Johnny has 35 years of stuff to send, Miguel says brevity is the soul of wit. Sending her this would be like if you liked all her photos.
All right, I got amped up, okay? Look, she put a smiley face in the message. She's even got little red cheeks. That means she's getting hot?
Whatever you do, don't like all of anyone's photos.
So he did that after all, huh?
Yeah.
Johnny admits that he got amped up to reply because she sent a smiley face, and he wants to know if that means that Allie's feeling hot.
Miguel says, maybe later I will go over with you what the peach emoji means, but not right now.
Sometimes a smiley face is just a smiley face.
Miguel suggests a complete profile makeover.
And then you'll be sending your message from a position of strength.
I like that Miguel is turning Johnny's teaching back on Johnny.
So he can show no mercy on social media. So Miguel asks Johnny if he's got any pictures that they can post because his profile is pretty bare.
But we'll come back to that in a second because we got to jump back over to LaRusso Mance where Amanda is giving Daniel the info dump on everything that happened in the last 2 episodes while he was in Okinawa.
Yeah, Amanda calls Kreese a Cape Fear level karate psycho, and you can see that Daniel feels validated.
Counselor! Counselor!
Mad that the students broke Dimitri's arm, and Amanda has also had it up to here. So she says that if they're going to do it, they're going to do it the real way, go to the police. Because, of course, Daniel wants to do it all himself, which is what got us into this mess in the first place.
Yeah, once again, Amanda's here with the trademark realness, and let's see how well a real solution works in the Karate Kid world of the Valley. Meanwhile, over at the Cobra Kai dojo, Kyler and Brooks reacquaint themselves with Hawk.
Oh. I realized it's the kid with the lip. Yeah, I thought it moved.
And call out the fact that his funky new hair distracts from the scar above his lip. So Hawk is kind of reverting to his younger, shyer self, but he's ready to fight when Kreese says, "Let the games begin."
Yeah, he immediately pairs Kyler and Mitch gets in a kick, and Kyler threatens him, but then Mitch tries to kick and punch, but Kyler knocks him flat on his peach emoji.
Wow. It becomes an MMA tourney when Kyler flips Mitch to the ground and puts him in a headlock, and Mitch taps out, but Kreese looks knowingly at Hawk and then tells Kyler to finish Mitch. So, of course, Kyler knocks Mitch out, no scruples there. Mitch is both knocked out and kicked out of the dojo.
Mitch taps out and Kyler wins the match. That's when Kreese says to quote unquote
finish him.
And it's one knockout punch. And Mitch is gone.
In more ways than one.
Well, that's the thing. When Mitch does manage to get back up and start crawling back to his spot, Kreese is like, well, where are you going? And it's at this point we learn that this isn't tournament. This is for real.
You know, it's funny because Brooks is carrying it on, whipping it up one last time, and he reminds me so much of the jerk sidekick in the young Indiana Jones part of The Last Crusade when there's that guy who just won't stop screaming like with excitement. That is Brooks.
Got some. Woo! Yeah! I got some, Dory. I got some.
This is my second Indiana Jones reference in 2 episodes. So when Kreese kicked Mitch out, Hawk tries to speak up, and this is a typical Cobra Kai moment where Hawk is completely deadpan, but the dialogue runs, "Sensei, ass face has been loyal to the dojo." Because, of course, that's Mitch's Cobra Kai name. And Kreese replies again, "Only the strong will survive." So, like a bad boss, right? Kreese makes everyone fight for their jobs.
Like the worst boss in the world.
We're all best friends. I love everybody here. But sometimes your best friends start coming into work late, and that is when it's nice to let them know that you could beat them up.
But we will have to put a pin in this because it's time to hop in our time machine and go back to Camp Shutterstock, where the captain is taking Kreese through the paces of the No Mercy lifestyle.
While they scrap, he tells Kreese that if he loses concentration on the battlefield, he's dead meat. Like Dutch says, dead meat.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, Twig and Ponytail are looking on from the side while Kreese and the captain are fighting. The captain is telling Kreese that,
your enemy wants you dead, so you have 2 choices. Kill or be killed. No hesitation, no second thoughts, and no mercy.
And drilling it into these 3.
You can leave all that peace and love crap for the college sissies back home.
Well, I mean, Kreese volunteered, so he's the least piece of love guy in the room right now.
The captain stops to go collect a letter in a red envelope, which is ominous. He opens the letter and looks over at Kreese as Kreese is talking to his 2 friends. But he tells the guy who brought the letter not to tell Kreese because it could make him lose focus. Could get him killed. Meanwhile, off to the side, Kreese is now looking at Betsy's picture, telling her,
"The home send office."
A bit ominous.
So I have a question. What did you think that meant when this happened in the scene?
Well, I mean, I feel like it's pretty obvious. Like, we've got red letter, we've got don't tell Kreese, and then we've got a picture of Dollface, and I'm like, uh-oh.
I did wonder for a minute if maybe she was pregnant, because that would make Kreese not want to die. But we know that she's pretty much the only thing in the world that he cares about. So if the captain got news that could put Kreese off his game, it probably doesn't bode well for her.
Right.
As if we needed any more evidence that he wasn't dealing fairly, the captain is now withholding information.
But then we take this opportunity to cut from photo to photo as we go back to the future, and Casa del Johnny. Oh, this is a great fun Easter egg. Johnny's got the saucy photos out.
Yeah, he's got Billy Zabka's teen beat shots.
Yes, though, yeah, this was the fun Easter egg I alluded to a moment ago where, yeah, Johnny's got all these super saucy pictures that he has.
Beefcake Billy
Zabka in a shoebox. In universe, these are presumably just photos Johnny took of himself at the time, but out of universe, these are definitely like, yeah, Teeny Bopper magazine shots that they've repurposed here as Johnny's trophies, I guess.
Yeah, Miguel asked Johnny if he has more current photos, and Johnny says he's not sure if he wants Miguel to grease him up right now because baby oil gets all over everything. Thanks for that mental image. But instead, Johnny gets the idea that they'll play Allie's algorithm with photos of stuff she already likes.
See, you get them started young working the algorithm, this is how you do it.
I don't think Johnny deserves that much credit because he has no idea what an algorithm is.
No, I'm giving Miguel the credit. Miguel knows what's up.
That's true, you're right. And now, whether he likes it or not, Miguel is coming along to take pictures of Johnny in novel new positions.
Indeed, but we'll have to come back to that in a moment because now we are at Valley PD with Amanda and Daniel and our new friend Officer Cody.
Played by James Logan.
Telling her,
Amanda shows up to file a restraining order against Kreese only to learn that John Kreese has beat her to the punch.
Yes, figuratively this time, thank goodness. So yeah, in return for her slap in the previous episode, Kreese has shown up to the police and filed a restraining order before Amanda has gotten a chance to come down to the station and do the same. This leaves our new friend, Officer Cody, a little perplexed because he says,
just be the same thing. You can't be within 500 yards of him either way, so...
All right, this is a joke. You're just gonna take this guy's word for everything?
It's up to a judge to sort out.
So there's really no point to it, So it's an interesting case of Kreese playing the system in the same way that some of the other Cobras play the system at school.
He's like, well, he says he's a Vietnam veteran, as Amanda protests that he's unhinged. And you can see Daniel looking on because Daniel didn't know that Amanda hit him. So now Amanda sounds as nuts as Daniel did in previous seasons when he was all upset about John Kreese. The cop says, well, Kreese is a Green Beret who went through a lot of turmoil. So stay 500 feet away from him, and in a stroke of signature counterbalance entertainment humor, the police officer thanks Amanda for coming in so that they could serve her this way rather than having to go out and find her.
All this to say, it leaves Amanda sounding as nuts as Daniel usually does when he complains about Kreese's supervillain tendencies, shall we say?
Yes.
But anyway, they walk off, even though she says, quote unquote,
I have another idea, but it's the nuclear option. I hate it with every fiber of my being.
What could that portend? Meanwhile, at Cobra Kai, Tori is fighting off the young woman whom Kreese recruited, I believe, from the basketball team in an earlier scene. But Tori drops her and keeps her spot on the team pretty easily.
This is Gisette Valentine, actress, stunt performer, and writer, according to IMDb.
So now that Tori has finished that job and we won't be seeing Sarah again, at least not until she joins Topanga, Kreese picks Brooks for the next round, which means that somebody's going to have to go up against this guy and put him in his place. Who's that somebody going to be, Colin?
Well, there's only one person who could step up, and that is Hawk.
Yeah, Hawk knows he has to establish his dominance early and get this over with, and Hawk declares,
he's mine.
Heads up to Brooks. We see now that Hawk has a Grim Reaper tattooed on the spot where his moon tattoo used to be when he takes off the top of his gi.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So he's going to go up against Brooks, who looks doubtful about the whole endeavor.
Hawk is ready to unleash all his pent-up rage on Brooks, and Kreese sees the writing on the wall and tells the ref to put the flags away so that Hawk can go full Fight Club on him.
Where'd you go, Psycho Boy? I felt like destroying something beautiful.
And he really does. He's just like flinging Brooks around, punching him in the face, elbows to the face, all kinds of stuff. Brooks tries to use the force of his body against Hawk, but Hawk's got defensive chops as well as offensive ones. Brooks is asking for mercy, begging Hawk to stop.
Please, stop.
But Hawk does not care.
He draws blood early and often.
Yeah, he puts him down on the ground, and when Kreese says to finish him, we flash back on Eli trying to cover his scar in the cafeteria, and then back to Hawk, who's just pummeling Brooks as Kreese looks on, basically shivering in pleasure. So when Hawk stands up with his knuckles covered in blood and spits on Brooks, we see, number one, Tori looks taken aback by it. Kyler looks like all of his previous excitement is now checked because Brooks is on the floor kind of groaning weakly, and Kreese declares,
all right, class, I think we can call it a day. Somebody pick him up.
Yeah. Kreese is like, clean this stuff up, and then they all bounce. It's a real awkward moment.
Yeah, Kyler has realized this may not go the way he thinks.
This is not going to go the way you think.
Cut to across town where Johnny and Miguel are now engaged in a montage.
Indeed, I think this is actually in LA, or some of these are. In one, Johnny's sitting on a bench reading Queen of Hearts by Kimmery Martin, which is appropriately a story about friendship and forgiveness between two women doctors. Not that Johnny cares because he throws it in the trash when they're done.
And then Johnny and Miguel hit the art scene, taking pictures in a gallery where, of course, Johnny gets in trouble for touching the art. And also in front of one of Colette Miller's Angel Wing murals, which originated in LA, but now they're all over the place.
Then they go to Kitada Sushi, which is also an LA spot. And while they're there, Johnny scoffs at the dragon roll.
This is the point where Johnny almost becomes an unreasonably unsympathetic character for me, because it's like, who's going to turn down that delicious dragon roll? That thing looks amazing.
I do understand his skewering the dragon roll through with one chopstick.
When you get these overstuffed, like, American-style rolls, like, handling them with more than one bite with chopsticks starts to become an issue for sure.
I'm sure that Johnny ate shish kebabs at the country club in the 80s.
Oh, for sure. No sushi, though, clearly.
No. Johnny cannot believe that, quote-unquote,
Ew, people actually eat that crap?
As soon as Miguel's taken the picture, Johnny spits out the piece of sushi and says he's going to wash his mouth out, generously offering Miguel the raw fish that he just regurgitated.
Johnny is one of those rare people who, in the Venn diagram of Asian food fans and martial arts enthusiasts, he's like on a completely different page. Like, he's not even on the diagram. He's on a chalkboard like 2 rooms over.
Or papyrus. The comedy of Billy Zabka posing as Johnny trying to be normal in the world is pretty hilarious. You can tell that they're having real fun with this whole montage. Anyway, Johnny bails to go rinse his mouth out just long enough for Tori to come around the corner. She assumed that Miguel had come to see her, but he didn't know she worked there. She explains that she's now working 2 jobs, this and the roller rink, because her mom's not doing well.
This leads to a real awkward moment as Tori admits that
I know that I should come to see you. I just didn't know how to help.
And Miguel snaps back.
So you did nothing.
Well, Tori says that what they're doing is getting Miyagi-Do back for what happened, but this bothers Miguel too, because he says he never cared about Miyagi-Do or Kreese.
PolitiFact equals true on that one. You know, Tori says she doesn't believe it. She says,
Or are you just going out with me to get Sam's attention? I saw you with her. I didn't have a choice.
But to attack, I guess? Miguel says, yes, she did. You always have a choice. And this is really the key thrust of this season, and really all of Cobra Kai, is no matter your background, you are given options, and your choices matter. They make you who you are.
Yeah. And Tori's option, as it always seems to do, is that when she's attacked, she kind of doubles down on her own defensiveness, and she finally says,
I don't give a shit. Because all that matters is who wins in the end.
Yeah, because she's gotten all paranoid and is accusing Miguel of having only gone out with her to make Sam jealous. And, you know, it's so grim because we saw her be vulnerable, and again, she didn't know what to do with it, so she became angrier and angrier, and then she just said something she couldn't take back. And she walks off, leaving Miguel look extremely upset.
Meanwhile, at the LaRusso manse, the nuclear option is at hand.
Oh, it's Daniel's mother's famous chicken cacciatore.
Armand Zarkarian has been invited back to the show to talk business over Lucille's chicken cacciatore.
You should try dipping your bread in the...
The plan is to get Armand to agree to evict Kreese.
So they're pouring on the charm, including letting him dip his already bitten off bread into the communal plate.
Yes, I mean, consider it a charm offensive with chicken cacciatore in the place of napalm.
Wow. But Zarkarian doesn't want to do business with them because he doesn't trust car salesmen. But of course, he's doing business with Amanda now. And then just like Kreese called Amanda darling in the last episode, Zarkarian says,
You have a proposal for me, darling?
Amanda holds back her bile just long enough to ask Zarkarian to evict a tenant. And
a.k.a. Snake Karate.
A.k.a. Snake Karate, a.k.a. Kreese, doing business as DBA Johnny Lawrence, Cobra Kai.
At any rate, Zarkarian says that Kreese is an excellent tenant, much better than the last guy. Kreese pays on time every time. Amanda is willing to double the rent to buy him out, but Zarkarian wants triple, and Amanda says that all she wants is for Kreese to be gone. And Zarkarian says, the double dip. I like the double dip.
Did you just double dip that chip?
So?
You dipped the chip, you took a bite, and you dipped again.
I like the double dip.
Now, obviously, this is a reference to Zarkarian's love of dippable foods, including the chicken cacciatore. But this isn't the first time we've heard the term double dip on Cobra Kai, going all the way back to season 1. Does Watch Party have an analysis of this term for us, and what is Team Counterbalance trying to tell us with their ongoing runner?
That is a good question.
I know. Anyway, back in the show, Zarkarian is in agreement, and Daniel chimes in that they want him out by tomorrow. Optimistic music plays as Daniel and Amanda look pleased.
Yeah, they think they've done it, but let's just see how this plays out in actual practice. We cut to the Cobra Kai dojo, where Kreese has returned to his office to a mire of photo of himself with his fellow soldiers Twig and Ponytail. And then we do a little bit more time travel back to the backlot jungle where Kreese, the captain, Twig, and the boys are all on a mission to detonate a grass hut of some kind.
Yeah, but Twig screws up the radio call, giving away everyone's position.
They play this moment for a lot of tension. There's a lot of business skulking around the hut,
Well,
planting the bomb.
Ponytail is the one planting the bomb, and if their position is given away, the captain is telling Kreese to blow the hut, but if he does it, it'll kill Ponytail. So everyone is caught, and Ponytail pays the price. And this is when we get the reveal that
when they get caught, we get this little back and forth with our 6 commandos, Captain Twig, Ponytail, Kreese, and 2 extra guys.
The captain is telling Kreese that he screwed it up because he gave away their position.
You son of a bitch, Kreese. We had him. You killed us.
I could.
And then Ponytail sort of frog marched back in with the guys holding guns on him. We've learned that the captain blames Kreese, so Kreese is blaming himself because Kreese couldn't do it. He choked. Meanwhile, Twig looks up to see them bringing Ponytail in, and Ponytail is dead meat.
Oh, God. He's dead because of...
Yeah, Ponytail, unfortunately, is double dead meat as he gets shot conveniently off frame so that we don't have to put this in the Netflix ratings warnings.
Meanwhile, Twig freaks out because he knows it's all because of him.
It's all my fault. Oh, God. Shut your goddamn mouth, Silver.
It's because he choked on the radio before Kreese choked on pulling the charges. And as Twig freaks out, the captain says to him, "Shut up, Silver." And thus we learned that it was never Ponytail. Even though he seemed like Terry Silver, Twig Terry Silver becomes Ponytail by appropriating his swagger later in life.
Indeed.
And yep.
A complex interweaving of events, yes.
Oh, yes. Then we flash back to Kreese being pensive as he puts the frame back on his desk.
Alongside a grenade, I just noticed.
I thought that was a kettlebell, but, you know.
Anyway, so Zarkarian comes in, and boy, did he pick the wrong time to come calling on Kreese.
He explains that Kreese needs to pack up and get out because he can't rent here anymore. In the friendliest of ways, he explains this. When Kreese asks about the contract, Zarkarian explains that
all my contracts have escape clauses, and I have eviction papers.
Kreese explains that that's not happening, and Armand, who now we never get to see him standing up, but he's quite a short guy, turns to the door and calls in
Eric, Grigor.
Well, I just have them credited as Zarkarian's hefty nephews. Like, these guys are absolutely huge. The photographer frames them absolutely huge next to Zarkarian.
Exactly.
And they kind of do a fun little, like, cracking knuckles, putting on brass knuckles action to drive home the point that they're here to evict Kreese by force.
Kreese says,
I just cleaned the blood off that mat.
Which would almost be a Johnny Lawrence saying, but then Kreese smiles with obvious relish at the thought of so much evil smirking from Martin Kove in this episode. And I'd love to know if they give him direction for this, if he just choose scenery automatically, and my money is on the latter.
Back at Casa del Johnny, Miguel falls to the floor again, and Johnny tries to talk tough to him and says by seeing his ex, he let that get to him.
Yeah, but Miguel's like, we spent all day fronting for your ex, and at least I told my ex how it is. So Miguel is upset at Johnny's hypocrisy over spending the whole day doing stuff for Allie when he stuck to his own principles when dealing with Tori. Miguel is so angry and so enraged at Johnny because Johnny's running away from being a sensei, really, right? And that's what Miguel's really bothered, is that they're pretending like Johnny is someone else when really he's a sensei, and if he can't see that, he's blind. And Miguel's so busy telling Johnny off that he doesn't notice that he's now standing up.
That's right. Miguel is so pissed that it causes him to forget that he's even standing upright without the aid of this elaborate harness rig. And Miguel is understandably thrilled.
Having said that, there's a fantastical component to this whole deal with Johnny curing Miguel through the power of rock and intense emotional authenticity.
Well, it's this interesting trope where it's like, oh, we're going to get Miguel so emotional that he's going to like, I guess they're implying that there's a psychosomatic component to this without actually saying it.
It's very mind over matter.
Which, again, in the Karate Kid universe actually kind of makes sense, because there's a lot of stuff that does happen in the actual Karate Kid movies that's very mind over matter. Like, how is Daniel even standing during most of that, final fight in Karate Kid 1, right?
If Mr. Miyagi could heal Daniel with just a quick, chiropractic pop, there's a lot of mystery that by doing it this way and having this magical chemistry be the thing that heals Miguel, they're actually removing some of the Orientalism from Mr. Miyagi's special skills with Daniel, right? So in a way, that's good. But on the other hand, it's sometimes patently ridiculous.
Oh, yeah. No, this scene is there for these guys to sell, and sell it they do.
Yeah. And I mean, it's a little nicer for me than the scene in the previous episode when they're at the rock concert, even though we all needed that rock concert, right? But this feels a little more like how it would be for Miguel to become mobile again.
Well, the rock concert twist tells us it's possible, and then that exists to kind of help sell this moment when it happens.
Yeah, and Miguel thanks Johnny, and Johnny thanks Miguel because, Johnny has brought Miguel to the point where he will walk again, but Miguel has brought Johnny to the point where he will be a sensei again. Oh, that gives me goosebumps to contemplate that.
Well, we will get to that in the analysis section. Right now, let's join Johnny on his brand new revamped Facebook.
Well, Johnny's reviewing all the pictures that he took with Miguel, and we can see from his face that he's not happy about it. He's going to delete these posts because he looks ridiculous, and he knows it.
I look ridiculous.
We hear him narrating a new response to Allie while he clicks through all the pictures from being a sensei and helping Miguel with his physical therapy. It's quite something. In conclusion, he says,
"That's who I am. I'm a sensei."
Finally, acceptance.
Except now his message is too long yet again, and so after having given a whole summary of his raison d'etre,
too long,
he erases it in favor of the pithy, more Johnny-like, "Not much, you?"
Well, at least he didn't throw an eggplant emoji in there.
I wonder if Homer Simpson ever had such a moment of authenticity and then just went for the donuts instead.
Oh, I guarantee you he did. In fact, I'm going to drop a clip of that in right here.
I'd sell my soul for a donut.
And Johnny's very satisfied with his response to Allie. Meanwhile, at one of the locations of LaRusso Auto Group, we have Louie and Anoush back with their double act, selling cars on the floor. Louie's giving the soft sell to a woman and dragging Anoush any opportunity to have them banter. Obviously, the show is going to take it. While Amanda and Daniel are gloating over their triumph on the balcony above. Amanda thinks that she's beaten Kreese in one day. She says,
If I was around in 84, you probably wouldn't have as many stories to tell.
Daniel says,
I can't believe it's over.
And indeed it is not over.
Daniel gets interrupted by a phone call. At first, it's Armand in the office looking pretty worse for wear.
Yeah, he's looking roughed up. His shirt's open, his hair's standing up. And then Kreese grabs the phone away.
Hello, Danny boy.
And tells him,
But you can't end a war with diplomacy.
Kreese looks at his knuckles that are just a little bloody. And he suggests that Daniel prepare his students for battle because now it's open season.
Yeah, like Dennis Hopper in Speed, he's calling just to gloat.
You couldn't understand the kind of commitment that I have. You were in a man's life's work. But I got your attention now, didn't I, Jack?
And at that moment, we hear screaming in the dealership down below as what appears to be a python crawls out of a luxury automobile. I guess we're left to just believe this is a venomous snake. And Anoush hates snakes, so he jumps into Louie's arms with a piercing scream, and everyone runs away as Amanda looks shocked and Daniel enraged. We fade to another kind of end snake.
That's right. We go from a literal end snake to a figurative end snake.
It's really too bad that Sam Jackson isn't here to lament about the state of the dealership and its snake problem.
I have had it with these monkey-fighting snakes on this Monday to Friday plane.
Yeah, Louie and Anoush are clearly in their own Abbott and Costello movie somewhere. And with that, we conclude Cobra Kai Season 3, Episode 6, King Cobra.
King Cobra. So, Colin, how did you find this episode?
I found this episode to be very interesting and very rich. As we kind of alluded to in the recap portion, like they do some of the same beats that we've seen earlier in the season. We get Kreese flashback beats, we get Miguel's physical therapy beats, but they're kind of building it and iterating on those beats in interesting ways that keep pushing things forward and keep finding new twists. Like with Miguel specifically, the physical therapy beat that he has, his breakthrough in this episode, is played more for drama, whereas in the previous episode it was played more for comedy. And again, we needed the comedy version to kind of set us up for what was possible so that we could then do the drama beat of the same thing
Precisely.
in this episode.
Yep.
So yeah, and again, all the Kreese flashback stuff, I mean, we've had some of it in earlier episodes. Spoiler alert, we're going to have a lot more of it coming up in the next few episodes. But, like, I think they do serve their purpose. I think there was a lot of talk, both on our show and just in the general discourse when the season dropped, of, like, Netflix, pay us some extra cash and just give us the whole Kreese and Twig and Silver in Vietnam movie. It doesn't have to necessarily even have to anything to do with what's currently going on in Cobra Kai, like just kind of a fun bonus, or like a dramatic bonus, I guess, because Vietnam, I can't think of that many Vietnam movies that were that fun, except for maybe Good Morning Vietnam.
But okay, so this episode was directed by Steven Tushita. Hopefully I pronounced that correctly. And it looks like it was written by Josh Held and John Hurwitz, primarily. This gets right to a thing that I was thinking while I was watching this episode, which is, what does it mean or do, if anything, that there's more possibility and more buzz surrounding the idea of a Cobra Kai prequel than there is surrounding a Miyagi-Do prequel? I mean, we know that back in the day when they were making the Karate Kid trilogy, Robert Mark Kamen almost wanted to fully Back to the Future, or was that Avildsen, or maybe them together, like they had talked about doing
this
flashbacks.
was one of the pitches for one of the Karate Kid movies that would have been 2 or 3, which is the idea that we just go back in time and have Miyagi tell us the story of like the earliest days of Miyagi-Do.
Like Shinpo Sensei and the boat.
Sensei and the boat and all that stuff. Some of the stuff gets lip service in this series, actually, but yeah, like I would love that movie too. In fact, that would be probably a better movie than the Kreese in Vietnam movie. The Kreese in Vietnam movie at the end of the day would be dismal, and also we know how it ends, right?
Yep.
But the Miyagi Shinpo Sensei movie could be like a fun 70s kung fu / martial arts movie version of what was going on.
Netflix is cultivating so much friggin' anime right now. Give us the anime.
Ooh, that would work
Miyagi-Do's origins. Give it to us.
Yes, that would wash the taste of the 80s Karate Kid cartoon right out of my mouth.
Hey now, there are some decent Easter eggs that come out of that. But no, I mean, we deserve that kind of treatment, right? And that is something that I think everybody can get behind. And plus it erases the problem. Well, doesn't erase. We'll never be able to do it quite the same as we could if Pat Morita were alive. But with the Netflix budget and the attention for that, the Miyagi-Do prequel would be absolutely phenomenal.
Look, get at us. We'll pitch it.
But here's the question I have. That when I said that about we can get a Cobra Kai prequel, there's buzz surrounding that more than a Miyagi-Do prequel. These guys were the villains in the original trilogy and in the OT. And we saw that Johnny and the OG Cobra students were kids at heart, who, except for Dutch, who's a true sociopath and now in this federal pen. Everyone else has a good heart to some extent. And they're there for each other. But now what is happening is we're humanizing the villains. I mean, like Nawel on Twitter had this whole conversation about, can Kreese be redeemed? Which is, I think, a question back and forth, and a lot of us say no. Mm-hmm. But like, do we have to see everyone's redemption story? Do we have to humanize everyone? Does everyone get to be a relatable villain like Walter White is at different points in Breaking Bad? Or can they just be a villain? Or can they just never choose to be nice? And should we spend as much time on the bad choices as we spend on the good choices?
Well, I think that's a great question. And I think that even comparing what's going on today to what was going on in Breaking Bad isn't necessarily even fair anymore, because it's like we're not I don't know what you would call the current environment of streaming, but we're definitely no longer in what was quote unquote the golden age of television, where it was Mad Men, Breaking Bad, like all these prestige cable shows that were kind of dominating for a little while. Those shows were not concerned with whether you liked the antagonist or not at the end of the day. I don't think that you can make the argument that Walter White wound up being a likable character or even an anti-hero. I think now, in whatever you want to call the current streaming era, the stream age, the industrial streamolution, whatever you want to call it, like, I think what we're seeing now is the meta-narrative has taken over, and we're recontextualizing everything. And, like, people do love an anti-hero. They love a good guy turning bad. They love a Loki, for instance, where it's like, this guy was clearly the villain in the first couple Avengers movies, but now we want to do a cute Disney Plus show about him, so we're going to kind of...
Or you mean a bad guy turning good?
A bad guy turning good. That's kind of the extreme other end of the spectrum, right? Like, I don't ever think we're going to see that turn for Kreese. Kreese is never going to turn good in the course of this show, certainly not. But I do think that there is an interest in providing additional context and maybe not necessarily lionizing Kreese, but you're certainly getting close.
It's interesting. I think that he is being lionized. Well, one of the reasons is it's hard to separate Kreese from Martin Kove, who's so good at being Kreese and who relishes his position in the Miyagi-verse fandom, right? Who is an enthusiastic ambassador for the franchise and who's hilarious and just great to watch and must have a killer agent because of the billing he gets and everything, right? But that to the side, you know, he is an eminently watchable and enjoyable figure who also happens to look exactly like my late grandfather. Putting that to the side, also, you want to know more about why this guy was so bad because it's so out there. But, you know, the more we see him be humanized, the more the show, in order to remain the Karate Kid and to keep Miyagi, like the Miyagi-verse, that's why we first called it the Miyagi-verse and created this concept, because Miyagi and his kindness are the ontological principle, the basis of existence in this universe. The kindness, the choice to be good. So the more it humanizes Kreese, the more the show's burden of proof that the choice you make is what defines you. And I think that the showrunners and the writers may be tempted, even if Kreese isn't redeemed alive, to have Kreese go out with the final redemptive act, kind of Kylo Ren style, which we all knew was going to happen, or like Darth Vader, where there's a big boom at the end that takes Kreese with him, either figuratively or literally, but he saves Johnny in that moment. I don't want to see that because I think, and I said this on Twitter, the braver choice, the braver storytelling choice would to have Kreese not be redeemed and to have Kreese go out on those terms. You know, Terry Silver is going to be a whole nother kettle of fish that we get to discuss next season.
Yeah. I mean, I don't feel like there's too much to Terry Silver's origin story. Like, I feel like you just cut to a big pile of cocaine and that explains everything I need to know.
And some toxic waste. Or you just snort the toxic waste.
Maybe that was his whole thing to begin with.
You saying he switched the...
I'm saying there's a whole, like, I'm saying if Kreese's prequel is a Vietnam movie and Miyagi's prequel or the Miyagi family prequel is like a 70s old school martial arts movie, then Silver's prequel movie will be like a trauma movie. It'll be like Toxic Avenger.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
I'm deeply impressed.
If you
by
told
that.
me Terry Silver graduated the class of Nukem High, I would not be surprised.
Incredible. I mean, the thing is that Terry Silver is the next Hawk, right? We saw him being the kind of the Twiggy guy. No offense to actual Twiggy, the Twiggy guy off to the side who was
that. Now that is
mild-mannered.
interesting.
Yeah,
there is a definite parallel that they're drawing between Hawk and Terry Silver, and with Hawk's character turns this season, it'll be very interesting to see if we see that parallel continue into season 4.
Hawk's cruelty has been of a hurt kid, right?
Right.
But Terry Silver's cruelty was a already very powerful adult man choosing to do harmful things to kids.
For sure.
So, you know, despite the fact that the show may be equating their emotional origins, we are yet to see Hawk's choices. And, you know, right now, at this point in season 3, midway through, Hawk has made some cruddy choices. Like, he's hurt Dimitri, but he's ambivalent about that. And I guess I should add, too, that while, you know, you talked about patterns, right? One pattern that this episode repeats is that often by the 6th episode in a Cobra Kai season, you see the history or the building up of Cobra Kai being reflected upon. Like last season, we had all the OG Cobras going out together on their motorcycles one last time on that fateful journey.
Mhm.
This time it's a flashback to the origins of Cobra Kai and the building up of the new dojo with Kreese's super soldiers. So all that to say, like, they're doing these things that have emotional resonance with prior seasons, but it's important to reflect on the specificity right now, like the fact that Hawk is not the same as Twig, even though they have similarities. Like the fact that Kreese and Johnny aren't the same, even though Kreese used to be called Johnny. A lot of food for thought. Before we get to the MVP of the episode, I just wanted to throw in, like, did you see cracks in the show? I know there was a blog post that I read about the snakes because I was really curious, and this guy was just like, I can't believe that they're not even pretending to show venomous snakes on the show.
I mean, I feel like it's the same as Camp Shutterstock. It's like, at a certain point, you know, even though they do a great job with the budget they have and the fact that they're shooting in Atlanta and not Vietnam or Okinawa, although they did
go to Okinawa.
They did take a camera and a couple of and a couple of key actors to Okinawa. That's true.
This is no castle map painting situation.
But I don't think the Tomy Village set was in Okinawa. Let me put it that way.
That's in Atlanta. We know.
Yeah. So all that to say is when you're dealing with stuff like snakes on a set, whether that set be a plane or a car dealership or whatever, there's a lot of math that has to get done. And that math is, can I afford a good animal handler? Can I get that animal handler to source me a actual poisonous snake? Can I get that animal handler with the poisonous snake to make sure that that snake has been devenomed? And with each iteration of that, your cost for that kind of a line item goes up and up and up to the point where it's like, well, maybe we should just spend the money on a CGI snake, or maybe we should just go to the local pet store and just grab the first large snake that we can find.
Again, when is Cobra Kai Companion going to interview the snake and get the snake's take?
I want the snake's take as well.
I desperately need the snake's take.
Hashtag give me the snake's take. But again, all that to say, I think they do just fine with the budget and the resources they have. You know, in universe, I don't think Kreese was concerned with putting a poisonous snake in LaRusso Auto. I think any reasonably large size snake was going to work for his purposes of just scaring a bunch of stiffs into vacating the premises, you know, and kind of sending a message to Daniel. Like, that's all he needed to do. The fact that he even got a snake in there undetected.
He's special ops, Colin. Of course he got a snake in there undetected.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, you shouldn't be thinking about the kind of snake and whether that makes logical sense within the universe. You should be thinking about how Kreese got in that dealership without anybody noticing when Robbie had so much trouble doing it in season 1. And maybe you should be looking under your bed for Kreese tonight when you go to sleep. That's all I'm saying.
Listen, you guys don't know this, but Colin made me watch The Shining, which I had never seen, and I get really scared, and he told me that I would be fine, and I didn't sleep for, was it 3 days?
3 days, yeah.
And then we saw Room 237, and what happened next?
You didn't sleep for another 3 days?
Thereabouts, yes.
Yeah.
So guess what's going to happen tonight?
We're never going to watch another horror movie again. Which is a shame, because I watched Ginger Snaps the other day. It was delightful.
Now that Delta 8 is okay to consume in Texas, we may have some infinite possibility ahead of us.
Oh, fun.
Just need some chill.
Yes.
At any rate, all that to say, yeah, I agree with you that the show makes decisions because of budget. I'm not as bothered by the snake, and although I still wish Johnny wouldn't call Miguel's legs pussies, I'm not bothered by the fact that the physical therapy seems rushed because of the way they sell it, because of the show's commitment to storytelling. And
again, not to hand wave away everything, but again, with regard to the physical therapy stuff and how that's paced, it's like at a certain point you just have to remember that while the Valley does feel like a real place because they do a great job of giving you a good sense of place, and the actors are all really good actors and they're committed and you believe the things that they're performing, at the end of the day, the Karate Kid universe is a bit of a fantasy world.
What?
It's not completely
Colin, it's not a fantasy world. It's California. They've got guys in chicken suits.
But
they've got kids who drive before they're legal to drive. I mean, this is California. It's not California. It's fantasy. It's like Pretty Woman.
You're right. California is definitely not in our world.
It's Hollywood.
It is not reality. It is reality adjacent.
That's right.
So I guess also Reseda by proximity is also reality adjacent.
Yes, indeed. Now, as we wind down, I just wanted to hear your nomination for MVP of this episode.
MVP. Now, this is a good question because there are a lot of good nominees here. Like, Ponytail. Obviously, we're not going to see Ponytail again, so maybe
We hardly knew ye.
Ponytail, we hardly knew ye. What's his story? Did he love cocaine as much as Silver? We'll never know, right? We didn't even get a Dimitri scene in this episode, so can't give it to Dimitri.
The kids are at Lucille's, so we didn't get to see Sam either.
You know what? Actually, I was this close to giving it to Jacob Bertrand again, but he got my nomination last time, so I'll hold off until later in the season. But I'm going to give my MVP to Amanda.
That's who I have written down.
Oh, nice.
Yes.
So Amanda gets my MVP, and here's why. My reason is that Amanda, at least, unlike a lot of shows, Amanda at least tries the real world solutions to the problems at hand, just so that we can, even if it is just so that the writer's room can demonstrate, hey, real world solutions don't work in these scenarios that we've set up. At least she's trying. At least she's carrying the trademark Amanda realness to its logical conclusion. And then when she gets to the end, she's like, oh, well, I guess we got to start using Karate Kid solutions because the regular stuff's not working, gang.
I think that she's the Miyagi-Do adult with the most arc in this episode. And obviously just putting an arc for a character in a plot, in a screenplay or a teleplay doesn't automatically mean that they're going to be the MVP, because everybody in Cobra Kai has arcs. But because Amanda is so often the voice of reason, she doesn't get to grow as a character in the ways that we would want for someone as brilliant as Courtney Hengler. There's just not time. And we get to see her kind of repping the real world over and over again. But in order for the show to really build steam, it was time for her to fully enter the karate world and team up with Daniel in this way that is not just on the side or cheerleading, but supporting from within. We saw her take Sam's side and come to empathize and sympathize with her situation, and now it's happening with Daniel. And it's just delightful also to see Courtney Hengler play the reveal that she now has a restraining order taken out against her. That's great. So I would say that she is my MVP as well, just because it's great to see her get to act from a variety of different perspectives and for her to get to be the slightly unhinged one for a change.
Agree. So with that, we will wrap it up for King Cobra.
Feel free to hit us up if you've got answers to the questions we posed this season. We would love to hear your thoughts.
Yes, hit us up on Twitter at Karate Kid Pod, and we're always posting our stuff on there. We just got an update to our cover art by a good friend of mine, Joe Kniff. So it's
quite lovely.
Yeah. He did a nice job of kind of freshening up our logo. Johnny's profile is not the only profile that got a touch up this week. We got ours done as well. Rate, review, subscribe on Apple Podcasts or your podcatcher of choice. I understand that by rating and reviewing on Apple Podcasts, it does increase our algorithm. Again,
we'll have to ask Miguel about that.
Yeah, we'll have to ask Miguel about that, but I understand it's a good thing if you do that, so please do that. Rate us 5 stars, and then, tell us whether you're Team Cobra Kai or Team Miyagi-Do.
What about Team Reality?
But with that, we will see you next week when the episode will be Cobra Kai Season 3, Episode 7.
Obstáculos.
Until then, I've been Colin Canada.
I've been Jenny Carlson.
And we'll see you around the Miyagi-verse.
See you around the Miyagi-verse, y'all. This podcast has been produced and hosted by Colin Canada and Jenny Carlson.
Our music is by Chepo. You can find us at Karate Kid Pod on Twitter.
And wherever you download podcasts.